How are you?
A friend of mine sat down for a job interview last week. He was told 15 minutes for the interview. 2 minutes later, it was over. He'd failed. No explanation, no feedback, no human being even looked at him. Just an algorithm that decided after 120 seconds that he wasn't good enough. How do you prepare for that? Well, welcome to Unmuted, a young person's guide to getting hired with your wonderful friends from Speak the Speech. We say young person, this can apply to anybody. We say getting hired, this can cover all forms of communication. That's what we're going to be looking at today. 60% of large employers are now using AI, some form of AI screening in their interview process. Youth unemployment hovers at around 12 to 14%. That's double the national average. And the Institute for Student Employers says that communication and interpersonal skills are the most important thing that they are looking for in that recruitment process. And yet it's the one that is missing the most. AI these days is screening your voice, your face, your word choices before a single human being even knows your name. And a whole generation of young people are being thrown into this world without any preparation. We're here to fix that. So these two parts of the podcast, we are going to be helping you achieve or overcome some of those challenges. And you have Mike and Ruth here to help you do that. And Mike and Ruth are going to tell you what those two parts are going to be. Mikey.
Yes, thank you, John. So the question, is there a skills gap? Absolutely, there is. And as you've alluded to, John, with huge consequences in terms of employability, university places, but also I think just as importantly, a general sense of well-being and self-esteem and confidence and all those really important things. So I think the challenge we have is twofold, actually. It's helping young people appreciate the importance, the imperative, if you like, of bridging the gap in those skills, and then finding a way to help them do that in a way that's non-judgmental, that isn't, that's blame-free. Because this is a generation who have multiple reasons for struggling with spoken communication skills. It's absolutely not their fault that speaking up in front of others, interviewing well, putting their points across, asking for things that they need, why all of that is so challenging. So I'll be touching on just a few of those, the reasons behind the gap. And Ruth, you'll be giving some practical tips that will help people do all of this that bit better.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll be giving my top tips that you can action straight away to help you stand out from the crowd. So it's such a crowded market now. There's more and more and more people and less jobs for everybody to take up. So how do you stand out from the crowd? So that's what I'm going to be talking about.
And as always, of course, we will be asking you to like, follow, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any other podcasts. All right. So without further ado, then, Mikey, tell us about this skills gap.
So there's a handful I'm going to touch on, the first of which is the COVID communication gap. Young people who were, let's say, between sort of 13 to 19 during the pandemic from 2020 to 2022, they missed those formative years of in-person social development, whether that was school presentations, group work, all the casual social interactions that young people would normally have, part-time jobs, work experience. I'll be coming back to that in a moment with an example from my own life with my daughter. And research does suggest that this cohort has notably higher social anxiety and lower confidence in face-to-face settings than their pre-pandemic peers. So this is real. This isn't theoretical. In fact, I met someone this morning who described this very thing, who has a son in this exact cohort of young people who suffers terribly with social anxiety and the idea of having to speak in front of people. So this is just within the last couple of hours. So this isn't a character flaw. It's a circumstantial gap. And I think it's important that we do frame it in that way. I think it's a bit more accurate, and it's certainly a lot kinder. So there's the impact of those COVID years, which I think there will be more light shed on that over the coming years as more and more research is done into it. And then, of course, it's going to come as no surprise to hear about the social media versus real communication conundrum. Young people are arguably the most connected generation ever, but many are struggling with sustained face-to-face conversation, the whole thing around active listening. I don't know about you, but my young family, the idea of actually taking a phone call and having a lengthy discussion, it's anathema. I mean, in fact, that it doesn't really happen unless it really, really has to. So again, there's this whole challenge about reading non-verbal cues. And I guess the sort of contrast can be summed up in three things. Social media communication, it's curated, often very carefully curated. It's asynchronous, i.e. it's not happening in real time. And it's a bit low stakes. You throw something out there, you might get a speedy response. It might be a few hours later, a day later, and it's all this back and forth. There's not a whole lot riding on it. Something like job interviews, the exact opposite. It does require the ability to think in the moment, to be spontaneous. It's happening in real time, and the stakes are, of course, much, much higher. And what's also interesting, of course, is what employers are actually saying they want. I mean, this is really powerful. They are saying, it comes from the demand side, which is them. Surveys consistently show employers ranking communication skills above technical skills and even grades when hiring entry-level candidates. And the same surveys show that they're the hardest quality to find. So yes, there is absolutely a genuine market gap here. And that is huge. The implications there are enormous. And then, of course, we come to confidence versus competence. And in our work as coaches over many, many years, this is the thing we always say in our introduction to the day. We are trying to bridge the gap between how technically competent people are and how well able they are to speak well about what they do. And very often people who are brilliant technically and gifted at what they actually do really struggle to speak well about what they do. And of course, the problem there can be they appear less capable than they actually are, which is fascinating. But when you think about it, it's kind of logical as well. If you come across someone who doesn't communicate well what they do, you sort of make that logical leap pretty quickly. Well, how good are they at what they do? So it's a big ask, but we're in a world now where you need to be good at both. And then, of course, body language and virtual presence. So eye contact, posture, what we do with our hands, all of these things that, how we do that well on video calls as opposed to face-to-face. So we've been doing this online coaching for 5 or 6 years now. It's part of who we are and how we work. But for an awful lot of people, it isn't. It certainly isn't yet. So absolutely the gap is there. And I'll finish with just an example of my own dear darling daughter who turned 18 just a few days ago. So she's part of this cohort, this generation, if you like, who went through those COVID schooling years and all that was denied them in that time. She's lucky to have a lovely group of friends. I'm sure that made a huge difference at the time. But it has been fascinating to observe how in the last sort of year and a half, her taking a job at a local pub, high-end pub restaurant. And what's that that has done to her confidence, and I've no doubt there is a connection between the two. Face-to-face interaction, her having to read body language, dealing with tricky, sometimes demanding people, but also, yes, getting great feedback and getting tips, of course. So there is an element of financial reward for communicating well. Also, being rewarded for kind, efficient, effective communication. So I think she has been getting first-hand experience of synchronous communication, i.e., how she speaks, the body language she uses matters in real time. She can't hide behind a tweet or a post, which has, diluted consequences, if any at all. So yeah, as I say, she has been getting the opportunities to practice being good in the moment. She has to be agile, quick-witted, and yes, take the rough with the smooth. That's the nature of that work. Realize that the world doesn't fall apart or crumble if things don't always go perfectly. In other words, she's developing, and I know it's a buzzword and has been for some time now, but that vital quality of resilience, born out of the doing of real communication. So that's my take on that, and a simple example of how that is a world apart from, and a way of bridging that gap in the real world, as it were. So those are my thoughts there. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mikey. Some fantastic stuff there, really, and obviously, yeah, very thought-provoking stuff. And as you were talking there, it really struck me as well. We talk about this gap, the gap that is there, and we've all got kids who are school age, and we send them off to school every day. And I'm just curious because I can't really think for my kids. So I've got 16-year-olds, twins, and a 12-year-old. What's being done at school level to help prepare kids for this new world, right? Are you getting any sense of it at all, Ruth or Mike?
This is where I think this is a really unfair gap that's happening, because private schools do have this in their curriculum. Private schools have oracy skills, they have debating, they have all of that. It's not built into the curriculum of state schools yet. Something may be coming in, because I know that the government has realised that this is such a valuable skill that needs to be taught in school, but it's not there yet.
It's treated as an optional extra, isn't it?
Yeah, so there are in state schools, I think there are in some debating clubs and things like that, but it's not built into the curriculum. Whereas private schools, they all have their Lambda and Trinity, and they have their
Yeah.
debating classes, and and for me that is making it such an unfair advantage.
And I guess that's always been the case that private schools will have always had those debating classes and those oracy skills. But I don't know, it strikes me now that there is that danger. You talk about that real life communication, and if we can accept that is being done less, generally that's being done less now, then that preparation for life that we used to have, where we would have conversations, where we would make phone calls, have encounters with people, from a young age, if that's not happening as much now, then doesn't that exacerbate the problem that actually, when it does then come to the real world and having to properly communicate with people and go through a job interview, just not having that practice, that skill to have those live conversations.
Yeah, definitely. And I think your daughter, Mike, is really lucky that she's managed to get this job, because I don't think actually nowadays it's that easy for young people to even get a Saturday job. I think those kind of entry level jobs now are so sparse because, businesses are struggling too. So they can't afford to employ lots of people on minimum wage with all their business rates and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, all of those entry level jobs that I agree. I mean, I worked in a cafe, I worked in a restaurant, I did all of those things when I was a teenager, and it definitely helped with my communication. You're speaking to strangers all the time, aren't you? You're having to communicate and deal with different types of characters.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah, they are people you've never met before, and so you don't know what's coming through the door, and you're having to react and deal with each. Millie's described people from obviously different parts of the world. This where we live is very popular for tourists, so people from different cultures with often minimal English, for example, and yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. That's a huge part of it, and regular exposure to that is bound to, over time, build that bit of confidence and willingness to be in those moments and to deal with them well.
And we talked in the past, haven't we, about the penchant these days for voice notes and things like that. So again, I know with my daughter and her best friend, I mean, it's lovely. They do send each other voice notes
and
throughout
video
the day.
notes as well. I think video notes as well,
and video notes as well. You're right, yeah. But again, that's lovely because they're communicating and they're very that's the norm for them, right? Obviously, for us oldies, it seems a bit strange. I would say, why don't you just have a conversation? No, this is much better. But then, how does that help when it comes to the interviewing, when it is live, when it is, instant, and it's, as you said, Mikey, asynchronous or not asynchronous?
So when it's in that face-to-face situation, it's synchronous, isn't it? It's real
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff that isn't. The
other.
posting and all that social media stuff is asynchronous.
This is it. Yeah. Great. So look, we agree, right? Obviously there is a gap. There is a gap. There is a need. I think the other thing that I found interesting during some of this research is when we talk about interviews, it's no longer 10 applications for a job or 20 applications for a job and a future employee looking through the CVs and drafting or selecting 5 people to see. The average amount of applications per job has gone through the roof. And it's quite interesting. There's the CEO of Greenhouse is a guy called Daniel Chait, and he talks about what he calls an AI doom loop. So we have this AI doom loop now when it comes to jobs, whereby people looking for a job realize that they can use AI, ChatGPT, to get their CV out there to as many as possible, right? So very often, companies now are getting hundreds, if not thousands, of job applications sent via ChatGPT, right? So I could literally now go and within 10 minutes apply for 500 jobs. So to counter that, companies are using AI to filter out all those applications. So it's become like an AI arms race, right? Who's there? Who's winning this battle? Right? You've got more applicants and you've got more AI bots refusing those applicants. Or, as we're going to discuss, AI screening, actually AI bots doing that screening process. So this is we talk about this 12 to 14% youth unemployment. It's a very, very real problem that we have here. And it's scary for our kids. For young people out there at the moment, but by the sounds of it, it's only going to get worse. So what can we do about it then? Part 2.
Are you a soul butterfly in the morning? Just one.